Hi, welcome. I just wanted to take a little bit of time, kind of more selfishly for myself, to just get focused. I feel like it's a really special time of year, and there is a special spiritual energy in the year, in the air, that's kind of talking about freedom. And we are all kind of doing a lot on a physical level in terms of getting prepared and cleaning our house and doing a lot of cooking and shopping. And the kids are going to be on vacation for a long time. So I just felt like, what would it take to sort of look in a direction where I'm not just focusing on the physical, but just on a kind of psychological and emotional and mental car wash, if you could say, something for my own kind of perspective of how I can look. And I just felt like, we talk a lot about where our experience of life is coming from, and that it's coming from within in the moment. And I feel like now is such a perfect opportunity to kind of look for that on a deeper level, because there is so much stuff that kind of starts flying at us in the next 2 weeks with things to do and lists to make, and it could create this whole stressful feeling. And I just know for myself, when I get lost in the illusion of life that's telling me my stress is coming from something outside of me, I kind of get onto like a spiral looking in the wrong direction, and it kind of can get a little bit out of control. And what I wanted to kind of just remind myself and remind all of us is our experience of life moment to moment is coming from within us 100% of the time. That the only way in any given moment I could feel overwhelmed or stressed or really centered and connected or present or disjointed, right? The only way any of that I could ever feel that in my body is if there is thought flowing through the system. There could be a spiritual reality during this time, but the only way I can experience it is if there's some form of thought flowing through my body, creating an experience in real time. And what I've really been experimenting with lately is seeing that thought, that energy that we're talking about, it doesn't, a lot of times it does show up as a content of thought, as a specific type of thought. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to do this, or I just cleaned the house, how could they get crumbs there, or this is just too much. Like, it definitely can show up in a content, but it also just has there's just an energy to it that shows up sometimes as an attitude or a perspective or an opinion or a belief that I might not be able to pinpoint the content of it per se, but it's some energy flowing through my mind, and that creates a feeling in my body. And I just learned over the years that feeling, it's like a sensation that kind of comes, that has become my friend rather than my enemy. And what do I mean by that? That when I get that sense of feeling of a little bit of urgency, or it has like a compelling kind of frantic sort of feel to it, I can feel it sort of pipe up. Sometimes it's extreme and it kind of, juts out at me, but sometimes it's really subtle, and it's just, I can feel that sense of, oh, there's a lot to do today, and I can get it, it can kind of work its way up. Whereas I used to think that was kind of my enemy, like, no, I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to feel overwhelmed. That's such a bad thing. Like, what can I do to kind of minimize that, besides tranquilizers, like, what can I do to sort of mellow that out? And now I've kind of learned, like, it's not really such a big deal to feel anything. Even if I feel stressed or I feel overwhelmed or I get upset, it's not really such a big deal. It's just this energy of thought flowing through my body. It will flow out my toes, and I'll have a new experience in the next moment. And so I've seen it as my friend. It's like my little warning sign. It lets me know the quality of my thinking in any given moment. It lets me know the quality of the energy that's kind of piping through my brain, so to speak, in any given moment. And what I've really learned is not to take it all too seriously. That I might get hit with there's a lot to do, and it could really be, the reality is there's a lot to do. There is. Technically, there's a lot to do in these next couple of weeks. And that can go for any time of life, right? We could be having to have a holiday or make a bar mitzvah or a wedding or Shabbos. It could be I have a big assignment at work. I have a class that I have to prepare for. It could be anything, not necessarily limited to this time of year, but there is a sense of there is a lot of to-dos. And this is not to negate that reality. There is a reality in front of us. But the question is, looking at my experience of that reality can only be coming from within me. If I get hit with a lot of thinking and I take all that thinking really seriously, it weighs on me. When I'm believing all that, like I can't, and this isn't fair, and I've had enough, and how much more do I have to do, and why am I the only one doing it, and why doesn't anyone help me? And those thoughts kind of come in, and I take them really seriously. Taking any thought seriously, the belief in any thought that pipes through a person's mind, has a heavy feeling to it. It has a, I don't know what another word would be for that, but it creates, we give words to it like anxiety and insecurity and stress, but it has a heavy feeling to it. And the only reason that we would ever feel this heavy, intense, despondent kind of feeling is if we're taking our thinking really seriously. And if we get a hit of the fact that thought comes through, and but for my belief in it, I'd have a different feeling. I'd have a different experience. But for my taking it seriously, I'd have a different feeling. I'd have a different experience. That we can get caught in the content and the sense of, I have to take this all seriously. I have to address it. If I don't address it, then I'm kind of in denial. And if I don't address it, then I'm not helping myself, and I'm not giving myself what I need. And it's really not so true. A lot of times we get hit with stuff that is just, it creates this sense of time pressure, and it's really just coming from a busy mind. And if our mind were to settle, we might have a different experience of having a lot to do, even though there is what to do. But I don't necessarily have to be freaked out while I'm doing it. I wrote in one of the newsletters the other day, my son was saying, I think it was Purim time, and my son was saying, I get that there's a lot going on, but do you have to think about it too? Like, you don't have to have thinking about it. You could just do what you need to do. And I felt like, wow, I'm going to really experiment with that. What's it like to do what I need to do? And what's it like to do what I need to do and have a lot of thinking about it? And the one thing that I noticed in the experiment was, it's not the thinking about what I have to do that kind of slugs me up. It's the thinking I have about the thinking I have about what it is I have to do, if that makes any sense. That we kind of get hit with layers and layers and layers of thinking that kind of by the time we're done, it's no wonder we feel this 50-pound weight on our heart. But if I was open to the fact that underneath all of that thinking, there is an essence of a human being that's deeper than thought, that's deeper than any thought we get hit from. It's deeper than even the energy of thought, that there's an essence to who we are that's deeper than our psychological well-being or lack thereof, that's deeper than our habits of thought, that's deeper than our chemical balances or imbalances. There's an essence of a human being that when we touch that has a whole different feeling to it. And it doesn't really matter what content is going through a person's mind when we're in touch with that. Because when we're in touch with that, when we feel that, when we're present to that, what shows up is that sense of presence and connection to something bigger than who we are, bigger than my personal thinking, bigger than all the ego thinking I could ever have. And that's what brings health. That's what brings healing. That's what brings an experience of, I can do whatever it is that I need to do and do it with grace. And that might mean getting stressed out, and that might mean having moments of really peacefulness while I'm cleaning and preparing, and it doesn't matter. But knowing that there's something deeper than all of the thinking we get caught in, for me, has been really hopeful, really hopeful that in any next moment, I could have a different experience, that I could feel really tightened and stressed and, heart palpitation and flipping out and yelling. And a moment later, I could feel, okay, perspective here. Get hit with a moment of perspective. Like, let's put everything on the side and get the bigger picture here. There's a goal here. I'm looking to just kind of be connected to that goal, be connected to that bigger energy, be connected to our creator. Oh, right. And somehow when my mind settles down, the essence sort of pipes up and I feel that connection better. And that to me is kind of what I'm looking for, to just be reminded that there's always an opportunity for the experience of connection, for the experience of presence. And if I don't make my getting lost mean too much, it doesn't have to be a big deal either. And innocently, I could accidentally kind of get lost and at the same time be able to know in the next moment I'll be okay. Like, it doesn't have to mean much. Where I see most people get tripped up, myself included, is when I get really bothered by all the thinking that I have, and I think all my thinking is a problem, and I think, oh, but I shouldn't be stressed out. I know how my mind works. It shouldn't be this way. It's not supposed to happen, right? All that kind of stuff. It's that I kind of just live in this expectation that things are supposed to go a certain way, that life is supposed to go a certain way. And when the curveball gets thrown, there's this sense of, whoa, how am I going to handle that? Well, I don't have to worry about having tools or anything specific to be able to handle that, because deep within every human being is an essence that's tapped into God, that has the ability to handle anything life throws, that has the ability to be given insight and wisdom and common sense that guides us to be able to know how to handle anything that's thrown our way. And if we're open and curious and just willing to listen and not get so tripped up by our own personal thinking and our own ego. When I say ego, I've kind of really been seeing that ego is way more than just that sense of arrogance that people tend to think like, oh, yeah, that's my ego, that's full of me. I've been seeing like, I can be really full of me, not in an arrogant way at all, but just in a very self-conscious way, or I don't want to say self-centered because that kind of has a judgment feel to it, but like a self-focused kind of way. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but somehow I just can get hit with a lot of thinking that makes everything about me. Here I am cleaning and somehow it just becomes all about me. Or my kids could do something or eat something in a room that I already cleaned and somehow it becomes all about me, or if it's not, it could be about me. Like, how am I doing? Like, how am I doing today? Did I feel really present? Was I connected? Did I have nicer thoughts while I was prepping myself? But that's still all ego focused on how am I doing? Evaluating, did I have a good day? Was I connected? Was my mind busy? Was it not? And I just have been seeing, wow, that's kind of all more ego. It's just more thought about me. And when I'm willing to not be so bothered by it, and at the same time not take it so seriously, like I don't really have to address it or figure out how I'm doing. Like the thought comes in, how am I doing? I don't necessarily always have to be ready and willing to answer that up. It could just be like, okay, let's just get back in the moment. And that fact that moment is always available. So to me, this kind of car wash for the mind is being open to point myself in a direction to know that I'm more than my thinking. And I don't have to get so bogged down just because I'm getting hit with a lot of thought. And I don't have to believe it all, just because I could create a limited, bounded experience of I can't. I'm over the top. I'm overwhelmed. I can't manage. That might hit me and I'll feel that And like I said before, like that feeling is my friend kind of telling me like, oh, the quality of my thinking is not so trustworthy right now. Maybe you could just hang out and see what happens. And when I'm not getting in the ring with it, it tends to take care of itself because we were created that way, right? The GPS system inside of us was created to clean itself out, to clear itself out, to allow thought to just flow through if I'm not making too much of a big deal about it. So I kind of wanted to just invite us all to be able to be open to a new experience where I can be open to more moments of being present and not have a lot of thinking about what I'm doing, even though I have stuff to do. And I would just be curious to know if anybody has a different experience of their cleaning or their preparations or even packing to go away. You know, just there's so much to do, but I can be present in each moment while I'm doing it or not. But I don't have to make it mean so much. And when I'm not getting so bogged down by all my thinking, what I end up being open to is the insight that kind of God wants to give me in the first place, right? All this preparation is, for me at least, about wanting to point myself in a direction of, you know, they talk about how this is the holiday of Pesach, where, you know, we can capture Amuna, where we can feel the faith in God, where we can have an experience of really living with that. And I feel like since I learned about the principles, my experience of that faith is so much deeper because I understand how my mind works. Because I understand that an experience of feeling connected and feeling faithful and feeling trusting is coming from thought in the moment. And if I'm not getting too busy with my own, almost like the sense of I have to get out of my own way with my own ego, if I'm not filling it up, God will fill it up. And it might not be filled with content and thought, but it will be filled with a feeling. It'll be filled with a feeling of connection and presence and trust, which really is the essence of a human being. That is who we are. We don't have to work so hard at it. If we don't think our way out of it, that is what we would be, right? If we're sitting there at the Seder, present, without a lot of thinking, that is what would naturally show up. That is the human experience of what would show up, but for the fact that we innocently think our way out of it. And when I do innocently think my way out of it, I don't have to turn that into a whole thing either. It doesn't have to become a thing that I have to fix or work on. It will run its course. It will flow through and just have to show up. I kind of view myself as, can I just be a vessel? You know, I'm looking like, can I just be open to be a vessel? Stuff will come through and it might look pretty and it might not, but I can just kind of let it do its thing and show up again in the next moment and just kind of be the best vessel that I can be. And that's kind of just what I wanted to share with you. So I'm going to stop the recording and thank you all for showing up. And those that are on live, I'd love to unmute you and take any questions that you have.